This is Tim,
This is Ryan.
and this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Ryan in Minneapolis. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm okay. What's the temperature there today?
Right now, 11 below,
Ugh,
and I'm not sure with the wind chill.
yikes. Okay. Well, Tokyo is in the 50s today, so 50s
Whoa,
Fahrenheit. So yeah,
that
quite a,
sounds
quite a
great.
contrast. Yeah.
I'm envious.
Okay, so another comic to talk about. Yeah, this is FingerBang issue 4. We never saw the other three. This is the first one we've seen on this show. By Ben Perone and Jer Gordon. The question I kept asking myself when I read this is this okay?
Um,
Because, the thing that kind of, I'm not even sure how to describe my feeling, but the clan are in this as henchmen to a supervillain, and I don't know. I mean, the clan has really existed in human history and does exist. I mean, in American history, and have done some pretty bad things. And so, this comic is kind of goofy, and I was wondering if it was, making a little bit too light of them. What do you think?
I think that, it follows. First of all, the thing that confused me a bit is I couldn't tell who was the writer and who was the artist of
Hmm.
the two people on this one.
Mm-hmm.
The credits didn't specify who did what job.
Yeah.
And then the cover is by someone else altogether.
Hmm.
I think the humor kind of follows in a straight line from, the Johnny Ryan influence is pretty obvious in this stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with his old Angry Youth comics or
Rings
Prison
a
Pit.
bell a little bit.
Yeah, it's just it's juvenilia. It's designed to kind of, as the British would say, take the piss out of, third rail type targets.
Mm-hmm.
A, a lot of old underground stuff had that sensibility. Certainly, it's not too hard to flip through old issues of Zap and things like that and
Mm-hmm.
find, granted, those were better done. I'll just cut to the chase here and say that I found this an amusing, if mediocre, product.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of the laughs were, I don't know how intentional. Like, another target besides the clan here was the Space Force, and the
Mm-hmm.
Space Force is, a joke of an idea. Pardon my editorializing there, but I noticed like the one Space Force dude bore a pretty strong resemblance to the horseshit comedian Gallagher. Did you
Mm-hmm.
notice that? So I got a few little yucks out of it here and there. The art is kind of appealingly simple. It's um, looks to me like it's done in a digital approximation of colored pencils. I don't know if you had the same opinion.
I thought it looked. I don't know if it was done digitally. It looked to me like it might have been all hand drawn and hand
That
colored
could be. That could
with
be. In
colored
which case,
pencils
more
or
power to 'em.
crayons.
Yeah. If that's the case, then more power to them. They do have digital stuff that really apes that effect really well, though, now.
Mm.
So I couldn't say for sure. I get the point that treating the clan as kind of wacky figures of fun is, blatantly kind of offensive. But I think the whole idea behind this comic is to kind of be blatantly offensive. And that's fine. There's always, there's a place for this kind of thing. Certainly people like uh, Ben Mara and some other popular contemporary cartoonists kind of play fast and loose along the same line sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
If you pick up, if you pick up, not just an old underground, but even more contemporary anthologies like the occasional strip in Kramer's or something, or Now, you'll find some deliberately offensive, crude, juvenile stuff that's just designed to be that way. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the end of the world, but for readers who are more used to, a narrative where the point of view isn't inherently cynical or sarcastic, and like kind of clear messaging, then yeah, I could see where something like this would kind of be like morally queasy to them. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but since you mention it, yeah, I think some of the underground stuff I have seen would be much more offensive than this. So,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
so FingerBang is the name of the hero in this. I'm sorry, I don't quite get what the name means. Is that referencing something?
Yeah. Are we running a family show here or what?
Okay, all right. Yeah, I guess I can imagine what it might mean.
Yeah.
He seems to be a pot smoking superhero, and I'm not quite sure what happened in the other three issues, but basically he's been fighting this guy called Glenderson,
Yep.
who I guess I picked up he blames Fingerbang for his father's death.
That's the impression I got, but again, not having read the other issues.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, it's not like you're coming in super far behind either. We're talking about fairly simple stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah, the art is kind of like I don't know. I hope that these guys aren't like 45 years old, but the art made me think of like a really accomplished 17-year-old drawing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with the art to tell you the truth. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
read a lot of pretty far outside the mainstream stuff. Anybody who follows my blog over at Four Color Apocalypse probably knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually Hughes even a little closer to straight narrative than a lot of stuff that I
Yeah.
choose to pay attention to. So I'm okay with the art. I mean, there's a lot of people who will say that there's a deliberately naive quality to it. My best guess is that this guy can probably draw better than this, but
Hmm.
they're doing this on purpose. I mean, he's got a pretty sound grasp of, like, if you'll notice, like, panel structure and
Mm-hmm.
the fundamentals of composition and stuff. I mean, people aren't in places that don't make sense
Yeah.
or angled in such a way that, it looks like when they're speaking that bears no relation to one another and things like that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, those are more hallmarks of pure amateurism. So
Right.
my
Yeah.
guess is
Well,
that formally this guy's a better artist than it looks.
yeah, you're right. Because like Mulele and I doing this podcast over the years have certainly seen much, much, much worse storytelling than this. The storytelling
Yeah,
I had no problems with at all in this.
it's crystal clear.
I think maybe I'm thinking it looks kind of like a teenager's work just because of how the coloring is done or how it looks. Like you said, it might have been digital, even though it doesn't look that way to me. But if it had been colored in like in Photoshop in a more conventionally Photoshoppy way, it might not give me that impression of being done by a teenager.
Sure. I mean, you can look at, like, who would be a name that the average reader would understand quickly? Let's say like John Porcellino from King Cat,
Hmm.
which I don't mean to draw a comparison between these two. I mean, that's a Porcellino stuff is far better. But you can look at it and say, well, the average viewer or reader might look at it and say, well, this guy isn't much of an artist.
Hmm.
But in point of fact, it's very smart cartooning that's stripped down and simplified. And, that's a purposeful look. And he's kind of been honing and refining it for what, 25, 30 years now. So,
Hmm.
um, simple and scaled down does not necessarily mean lack of talent.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the storytelling is fine. It's great. The art is, yeah, really neat. I don't know, just maybe just the humor didn't land with me very much. I mean, I could tell it was wacky and whatever, and it was, a little amusing, but I didn't find it hilarious.
Oh, I agree with you there. I mean, I wasn't laughing out loud or anything. Um, Back in the 90s, a guy named Brian Sendelbach, and I forget who else,
Hmm.
used to put out this thing called Smell of Steve. And this is really reminded me of Smell of Steve, except instead of Klansmen, they had interchangeable rock stars. And it was the same kind of, who all looked the same, like Phil Collins, Eric Clapton, Michael Jackson, Freddie, whoever, Eddie Van Halen, were all portrayed as a dude in a top hat smoking a cigar with an eye patch. Every single one of them. So, and it was all this, science fiction-y type hijinks that made no flipping sense, but yet did within the context of a self-contained narrative. It just, it bore no relation to reality. Um, and at least this one here, I mean, their targets were obvious, but at least they were, I don't know, well chosen. I mean, a worse comic with rather than making Klansmen look like goofy, inept idiots, it would have been worse to crank out a comic where they were heroes,
Yeah.
And we've got enough retrograde comics gate type garbage out there that's basically doing that already. So
Hmm. Well, yeah, the presence of the Klan here made me think about race in this comic, and actually, there's a real diversity of skin colors in this, including some skin colors that aren't actually possible in the
sure.
real world. But there are people who are clearly white and black and brown, but also pink. And there's a guy, I guess he's a genie, who's like aqua colored. And the villain is like a bright yellow, like a Simpsons character.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's some diversity in this.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's well represented and basically made fools of on some level or another. I mean, it's not a story with I don't know if you'd agree with this, but I'd say it's not a story with heroes per se, as just lower grade fuck ups than others.
Yeah, it's not like FingerBang is some paragon of virtue in this, but
No. Uh-uh. Oh, and by the way, that if you are having trouble with the reference, the name means what you think it does.
yeah.
There
Okay.
you go. All
Um,
right, just to
I
be clear.
I did appreciate the guy who got pulled up into the air by the balloons. Comes back later when the spaceship goes by him and pops his balloons. So there was some really consciousness of things that he had set up and coming back to them later.
Yeah, the plot construction was fairly tight.
Hmm.
For absurdist, nonsensical story, the plot construction was tight. I mean, I'm not going to give these guys failing marks on any of the fundamentals.
No, not at all.
I just don't I think where it falls a little bit short, and where I called it kind of a mediocre example of this kind of thing, is for an obvious humor story, it was only marginally funny.
Hmm.
And that's cool. I mean, whatever. But they're going for laughs from panel one to panel last.
Hmm.
And you're right. A lot of them, maybe if we were 18, maybe more of them would land. That's entirely possible. But yeah, like I said, to me too, they're wearing some of their influences maybe a little too obviously on their sleeves. This is their Johnny Ryan, in my opinion, being the biggest one. But if this is their fourth issue, I mean, I could see them, if they take their time and don't crank these out rapid fire, I could see them, kind of catching a groove by maybe number 6 or 7 and having a pretty consistently funny little comic going on here that, yeah, will offend some people, but um, a lot of stuff always has. And it's not like it was mean spirited. It's not like some of these, like, say, old crumb strips that probably are racist by today's standards or
Mm-hmm.
something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, you know, they're poking fun at, you know, prejudice, racism, stupidity in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you never doubt that their sympathies are, say, not with the Klansmen.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so this is kind of fun. I'm not sure how people can look at it. I'll have to see if I can find a link. Anything else going on comics wise?
In addition to this, oh man, a lot. I mean, I don't know how directly related to any of it is, but yeah, I got a preview copy the other day of what I consider to be going to take some real effort to supplant as the book of the year for 2021, and it's only what, February?
Yeah.
So there's some really exciting. That's Manny Murphy's "I Never Promise You a Rose Garden"
Okay.
coming out from Fantagraphics.
Hmm.
I reserve, you know, I'm a fairly critical guy. I reserve calling anything a seminal, you know, all-time classic work. Trust me, that's the one out of anything I've read, even in the last year or more. I think that comes out March or April. I can't. Everybody just pre-order, do whatever now. That's gonna. You'll thank me later. That is the book that's gonna be the talked about one this year. It's just astonishing,
Hmm.
absolutely astonishing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We'll have to
So
check that
I would
out.
say that's the most exciting comics news going. But there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. I just kind of caught up with what's, you know, speaking of some of these bigotry and prejudice type issues. It looks like the guy who draws the Hulk is in some hot water for some pretty I don't know if you caught all that, for some pretty shall we say suggestive and offensive placement of things in a current issue that
I
are
think I
pretty.
did pick up a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's really depressing because um, I don't really read any big two comics except the Hulk, which I've enjoyed a hell of a lot. And now it's like, oh, dude, and I've liked this guy's art too, Joe Bennett. I think his character designs are just terrific. And to see him playing around with anti-Semitic tropes like that, and um, show, you know, there's really not much that you can say in his defense when you now that they've dug up some of his past
Hmm.
statements and things like that and tweets. So it's a shame. My guess is they'll let him finish out his run. I guess they're ending this current series at number 50 and then probably quietly not hire him for anything again.
Hmm. Yeah, I just found a CBR article about it.
Yeah, I guess the dude's a Bolsonaro supporter too. He's from Brazil, so
Okay.
yeah.
The
So kind
equivalent of
of
being a Trump supporter,
at least
at least.
probably. Yeah, I mean if there's, you know, Bolsonaro might even be more blatantly offensive. But yeah, that's another thing dragging back to this comic. I wonder how well it'll date because some of the MAGA targets that they take and the Space Force stuff and the obvious fun they're poking at Trumpism
Hmm.
is, you know, blissfully, for now at least, out of date. So,
Yeah, I mean, 10 years from now, people might not get some of the jokes in this.
you know what? We should hope they don't, because if they do, it means this stuff is still around.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess you know, if history goes well, or the future goes well, God, listen to me. If the future plays out right, this comic will date very poorly.
Mm,
And if the future plays out poorly, then it will remain relevant and, you know, as timely as ever. So let's
mm,
hope not.
yeah. Well, that's always a risk in doing kind of, political commentary in comics. I mean, a lot of the Bloom County stuff hasn't dated very well either because it's all this, Reagan and whatever that,
Oh yeah.
younger
Mhm.
people like, huh? What? What are they talking about? Who's Michael
And you
Deaver?
yeah, you could say the same for Doonesbury of that era
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
although, you
Hmm.
know, I mean, they do, they're still going, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's maybe a little different. But yeah, Bloom County, that was such an 80s strip just down to its core,
Hmm.
that a lot of it doesn't. I think even a lot of the social mores and things like that they're aping in there just don't translate well today. It was a fantastic strip for its time, and I still
Hmm.
enjoy looking it over again. But it's not like something like Peanuts or Crazy Cat or
Hmm.
Pogo or
Hmm.
something that a kid could pick up or a teen you can pick up today and remains absolutely timeless. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we've still got at least one more comic in the queue. I'm going to see if I can get Malele back for that one if we're finishing out the queue. But anyway, Ryan, thanks for being on this time.
Yeah, much appreciated. Have a great night.
FingerBang is at mokesstudio.com. It's linked from the show notes. Our theme is from bensound.com. I've been in touch with Mulele, and he's up to his neck in comics work, so unfortunately he won't be able to join us to finish off the current queue of comics. But instead we'll have Jason McNamara, a frequent Deconstructing Comics guest over the years and the author of such comics as The Martian Confederacy, The Rattler, and Nocturnal Commissions. And the comic we'll be discussing will be Duplicant by Carla Nappi and Mariana Strakowska. If you'd like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks here on Critiquing Comics.